All right, welcome back to the Spero Means Hope podcast, where we take storytelling to a whole new level by sharing amazing patient story, interview experts in the community, and share resources for clinicians and students. So tonight we have with us Chris. How you doing, Chris?
I'm fine. How about you?
I'm good. I'm doing really good. And Chris is an amazing human as well as our billing specialist at the KD location. So, Chris, can you start by telling us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what do you do for a living, what do you do for fun?
Well, I'm 42. Um, I'm originally from Houston, but I was raised abroad. My dad was in the army, so I grew up a little bit of everywhere. Um, I graduated from high school from here in Houston. I attended Prairie View, U of H, Houston Community College, and a few other schools. I got me a couple of degrees and had a few kids. I have adult kids now. I have a 19-year-old son, a 24-year-old daughter. Uh, what else? And I have a grandson now. He's one, and now, now I'm here working at Spero uh, in the building department with a lovely team and a cohesive staff. So I can appreciate the opportunity. So here I am.
That's awesome. Can you walk us through your career development? So, what did you study in college and how did you end up in the field that you're currently in?
Oh, I actually studied business in college and psychology in college. Um, but uh, around 2005, I wanted to get into the medical field. And so I wasn't trying to be a nurse or a doctor or nothing like that at this point in my life. So I was like, well, I can get in on the administrative side. And so that's when I went to a place called Everest Institute. And that's why I gained my knowledge in medical billing and coding. And so with that, I worked myself through the program, and then I started an externship at a place. My first real job in the medical field, place called Williams Billing, and they worked in a lot of different types of practices as far as doing medical billing, as far as like ambulances, uh, physical medicine, neurology, cardiology, all different facets of medicine. So anyway, I started there, and I started off not actually doing billing. I started off in the credentialing department. So I learned how to do tax ID numbers, MPI numbers. I learned how to get different providers and different networks. So that's how I started off in the industry. I did that for a few years before I even actually moved to the billing side, and I learned posting payments and insurance verification and a plethora of other things uh, in the billing world that I needed to be successful. And so I credit Williams Billing with my start in the industry as far as teaching me and giving me ground roots on both sides of the billing aspect, not just the actual billing part, but the credentialing side. So that's pretty much where I got my start, and it just kind of took off from there.
That's awesome. And I think somewhere along the way, you also worked in medical transportation. Can you talk a
Oh
little
yes,
bit about that?
oh yes, ma'am. Well, in 2009, me and a couple of business partners, we started a ambulance service. We at first were working for the ambulance service, and then we basically put our heads together and put our money together, and we started our own. Um, we actually bought the company from a guy that already had an existing company because Houston had put a stop on new companies, so we just had to buy an existing one, and that's what we did. And we started off with one truck, and we got it up to like 20 trucks.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah, and so mainly we focused on dialysis trips. So most of our patients, had diabetes and things of that nature. So they were going to dialysis treatments, and we had a couple of nursing home contracts that we dealt with, a couple of hospitals that we dealt with here and there. But then COVID came in 2020, and so that kind of hit us in the head because 80% of our clientele was dialysis patients. And then so when COVID came, all of those dialysis patients went from going to clinics to going to in-home dialysis. And they didn't want to get dialyzed. They didn't want nobody in their house, or they just refused treatment. And so slowly and consistently, our patients were, passing away left and right due to COVID. And so that kind of killed everything with Cobra as far as running an ambulance service because majority of our clientele had basically died, passed away due to COVID and other illnesses are related to COVID. So um, that's how that went. And then so we had to basically what you call liquidate assets, and and so here I am now at Spero in the building department. So I'm still back in the field uh, that I was in even with my own company because I basically took care of all the paperwork and the billing and everything of that in that nature. And I had another partner. He was over the drivers and facilitating what drivers would do, what transports on what truck. And then my other partner, he was a L1 certified mechanic. So he kept our trucks in line, brakes, equipment, tags, and everything. He kept all that, up to par. So that's how the three-headed monster works, so to speak.
That's awesome. And something you mentioned at the beginning too is that you're also a father. So can you talk a little bit about like how do you balance like fatherhood and like your work life? Like how does that look like for you?
Uh, well, it's kind of organic, right? No 2 days are the same. So uh, certain days require more of me as a father, and certain days require more of me as a employee. It's just learning to balance the two and recognizing situations and then adapting to those situations. And so I feel like when you're trying to balance family and careers, everyone has to know their place in your life, and you have to act accordingly. So if your kid's sports is more important to you than what's going on at work, I feel like letting your job know, like, hey, my kids have these sport events coming up, and so the communication type of thing, you want to make sure you utilize that type of tool when you're talking about balance. And one of the main things about balance is the communication balance. It's about letting one side know and the other side know what's going on. So they both know what to expect. You know what to expect. So with that, I say communication is key in trying to balance career and work. Because once your kids know uh, what you have going on, because you communicated that with them, then they understand. So it's like dad doesn't get out till 4:30. It's gonna take him 30 minutes to get here. So I know I need to try to just wait an extra 30 minutes, as opposed to like, blowing my phone up, and I'm like, hey, I'm not leaving work until 4:30, or why you calling me like that? Well, dad, I thought you would come pick me up. But it's like, yeah, but I don't get out to work till 4:30. Well, if I communicated that the day before, then that kind of alleviates that, that miscommunication, if you will, because that's half the stress with being a parent or even in any type of relationship, communication.
That's true. That's like really good advice. Something I really like that you said is everyone in your life has to know their place in your life. I really like that because I think we think a lot about, okay, if I want to prioritize my family, then I'm trying to like show them that they're a priority. I'm trying to like communicate that with them. But I liked how you talk about the other side of the communication. So like letting your workplace know, okay, this is like my order of priorities in my life, and this is like some of the decisions I'm going to like make accordingly. I like that two-way communication that you talk about.
Oh yes, ma'am. You see it a lot with the mother, like with a husband. You with the It's usually the mother-in-law and the wife with that go between. Not in your life, but I'm just saying, and just in general. And I feel like that's a byproduct of not letting both parties know their place. When you let your mom know, hey, this is my wife. She comes first, and this is who I've chosen, or however you put it, however a man, prioritizes his life, you have to let both sides know that. You have to let your wife know, hey, this is my mother, although, she's not as high on the list as you are, but she's still a priority. And so just like I love her, you have to love her too. That conversation has to be had, because then if not, then you got both going back and forth with each other, and the man is in the middle. Well, then a man in the middle is a man who hasn't defined boundaries. I always say that.
Hmm, I like that. Now, if you're looking back at your journey, what would you say are some of the obstacles you've had to overcome?
As far as
Anything. It can be personal, it can be professional, any obstacle you can think of that you feel comfortable sharing.
Well, I would think one of the biggest obstacles I've had to overcome in my life was losing my brother, 2017. I lost my dad at in '91 when I was 9, but I had only had 9 years with my dad. Whereas when my brother passed away, I was 35, so we had had all that time together. Not to make one more important than the other, but the passing of my brother is more significant because we had built lives together. And so, I mean, uh, that made me eliminate the gray area in my life. It made me separate people as far as black, white. Are you for me or are you not for me? And and just because you're not for me doesn't mean that you're against me, but you're just not for me, and you're not conducive to my growth. And so that's one thing. That's one thing I had to like overcome. I had to overcome situations in my life, people in my life, relationships that wasn't beneficial to me in my life. I had to overcome all that because a lot of times we look at things that are like like things that are exterior as obstacles. A situation at work, or a certain something we're trying to accomplish, whether it be in the sports world or in the professional world. But a lot of times, the things that the main things we need to overcome are in our own home. And so they're the relationships that are holding us down. Um, and sometimes I feel like that's the biggest obstacle to overcome because um, we are taught that um, we are taught that family is the end all be all for forgiveness and things of that nature. And I don't subscribe to that. I don't feel like just because somebody has your same last name that gives them the right to keep doing you wrong and you have to keep letting them do it. I was like, oh well, that's your family, that's your family. Well, if family means I have to accept them, why does family not have to mean don't do it to me in the first place? We focus too much on the accepting part as opposed to like, well, if I was your family, you wouldn't have done me like that, So, I I feel like in my life that's one of the biggest things I had to overcome. Just bad relationships that wasn't conducive to growth, that wasn't conducive to positivity uh, in my life.
I like everything that you mentioned about like nuancing those relationships between the close ones. So you mentioning the passing of your brother and none of your father, but then also mentioning how not every family relationships or relationships in general was a positive one in your life.
Mhm.
What do you think are some things that help you overcome obstacles? Like what do you turn to and how you're able to have that mindset shift?
Uh, I turn to positivity, things that things that make me feel positive, whether it be my kids, whether it be my health, whether it be anything, with whatever your happiness is. Some people it's like I have my faith brings me happiness, and so it may be different for whoever, but I turn to things that are positive to make me happy. So I mean it's like I can have the worst day in traffic, everybody cutting me off, and one guy almost hit my car, and just all this craziness and traffic that comes along with it. When I get home and I see my grandson smile and reach for me, all of that is irrelevant, you know. Yeah, so things like that, things like that make me happy. And so I try to hold on to that and dwell on that as opposed to like still being mad about some stuff in traffic. It's like, no, it's insignificant. So I try to focus on the positive. The negative is always going to be there. You just have to focus on the positive.
I love that you lead with positivity because I think that anyone that like has come in close contact with you can attest to the same thing. You from the moment that you walk in, it doesn't matter like what's going on in your life, what happens. You're just that guy that just walks around, says hi to everybody, and just pours out so much joy and so much happiness into the room. It's crazy. And I think that positivity, the fact that you mentioned that, like I can attest to that and see that because you're always like, hey, what's up? How you doing? Always
Yeah.
smiling and happy.
Well, yeah, that's a choice. it's like the good and the bad. It's a choice. The negative and the positive. It's a choice. You have to wake up every day and choose to be positive, just like you have to choose to be negative. Um, and so that's what I choose. It's better for me, you know. It's better for my health. It's better for the people around me. I mean, just because it's there. Um, it's like you just have to choose to see it. I don't
Yeah.
choose. I don't choose to acknowledge the negative. I choose to acknowledge the good. I acknowledge that they're both there, but I'm only going to dwell on the good. And so when you do that, I mean, it's infectious, right? Just like misery.
Yes.
Like people say misery loves company. Well, so does joy. Joy
Oh,
loves
I like
company
that.
too.
I love that. Joy
Yeah.
loves company.
Yeah. It's just that, the misery talks louder. Happy people are more content. Happy people are or don't have to do as much. The mean people have to get loud and irate and run their blood pressure up. Like, no.
Run the blood pressure up.
Yeah, no. Yeah. Nobody ever died from laughing too much, you
That's
know.
true. That's very true. That is very true.
Yeah.
Um, Chris, I love that. I know earlier I just asked you about like the biggest obstacle in your life. Now, if you had to think about your biggest milestones, like something that you've accomplished you feel very proud of, what would you say that would be?
Um, I wouldn't look at it as more of as an accomplishment as I do a blessing. The fact that I'm 42. My dad died when he was 25. My brother died when he was 35. Both of those men, in my opinion, were better men than me. So the fact that I'm still here at 42 to watch my son at 19, my daughter at 24, that's a blessing because my dad only saw me to turn 9. I'm his oldest. I'm his second oldest, son. I'm his oldest son. And my brother, he only got to see his daughter turn 1. Both of my kids are adults. The fact that I'm still here, that is my biggest blessing, accomplishment, anything, just the fact that I'm here. Just around, that's my biggest because it's no doing because it has no doing of my own. It's strictly based on God's grace because I've done things not to be here. you know I haven't been the best with my health. I haven't done the best with my choices in life. Nobody has, but that's what I'm saying. So it's a blessing that I'm here. uh, I don't think we realize how precious a gift life really is to be here. There's more people that are not here than that are here. So yeah, that's my biggest accomplishment. Just being able to make it to 42. Um, I stand blessed to see 42. That's my biggest accomplishment because no, anything that I would have done wouldn't have mattered if I wasn't here.
Mm.
So yeah, just being here.
Chris, I love that answer. I think people are grateful for a lot of things and usually go back to whether it's like a material thing or like a personal accomplishment, but you just bring it down to the simple like fact of just being alive, and that's huge. It's so precious, and I think that mindset that you have, I feel like if it was more widespread and more people thought this way, like there would be less wars, less like disagreements between people, all of the things, just because of like just being grateful to be alive.
Oh well, yeah. Well, it's the maturation, right? Everybody matures different. I didn't become a man until I was 32. Remember, I had that talk with you, right?
Yeah.
I said I'm 42, and I've been taking care of my kids and working and living an adult man's life, but I didn't become a full grown man until I was 32, and that's when I had to learn how to, think like a man and actually like have the spirit of a man. And so with that, like that's when you value the most simplest things. Boys value shiny things, you know, right? Boys value, the shiniest car, the shiniest chains. Even some men do, but but when you are at a peaceful part in life where you've done everything, you've experienced everything, the main things you value are the most basic things, which is life. Yeah,
What was
rich.
the? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was gonna ask you what was the demarking event like that changed you at 32, that changed you into a man.
My daughter going from young lady into womanhood. Whenever, because then I had to teach her about men. And whenever a man tell, and this is something I learned, whenever a man tells his daughter anything about the men out there, the first thing that she's gonna do is compare what he said with what he's been showing her, right? Yeah, she's not worried about the boys outside because she hadn't been seeing the boys outside her whole life growing up. She's been seeing her dad. So that's how girls decide whether they're gonna value what their dad says. Because as parents, we kind of forget that just as much as we watch our kids are watching us. And so just like, oh, you can't lie to me, I'm your dad. Well, it's like it's the same way. You can't lie to your kid. Your kid knows you. So we take that for granted. We take that for granted at times. So, and me teaching my daughter how to and as far as like what aspects to look for in a man, then I had to take account of my own relationships with women. I had to take into account my own behavior with women and all of that. And then that's when I realized like, oh wow, I had it all wrong. I was going off of what we had been taught growing up as young boys, as far as like how to treat a woman and how women need to be treated. And it was based on and predicated on what other men told me. I feel like if a man wants to know how to treat a woman, listen to a woman. Let a woman tell you. and so and so that's not what that's not how we were raised. And so, like I say, once I had to teach my daughter how to be a woman and what type of men to look for, then I actually had to become the type of man I wanted her to be with. And so that was challenging. That was challenging, to say the least, because I've had my own way of thinking before, and so you had to switch your thinking up when you're trying to raise a daughter because she's paying attention to you. Everything that you say, everything that you do, everything that she sees, hears, she pays attention to it. So that made me have to grow up. I didn't have to grow up to raise my son. I didn't have to mature to raise him. I just taught him what I knew. But to raise my daughter, yeah, yeah. And then I had to take into account that karma is a real thing. So, and I told you, just like the ladies at the office, the main reason I treat women right and I treat women the way that I do because I want karma to in turn treat my daughter the same way when I'm not around.
Well, I love that you like daughter raising your daughter helps you become like who you are now. That's and like lead by example and set that example. Chris, I'm curious, if this the current chapter of your life that you live in right now, if it was a book, what would this chapter be called?
This chapter would be called The Beginning. The actual beginning. I feel like everything in my life that's happened in my life was building me up to this point in my life. So, because it's like now I have everything, right? I have the knowledge that I need to have. I feel like I have the emotional stability and intelligence that I need to have. Um, I have the strength that I need to have. I mean, I have my circle of people around me that I need to have. And so now that I have everything that I feel like I need, I don't have everything I want, but I feel like I have everything that I need. Now I feel like I can really navigate life in the way that it was meant for me to navigate. And so I feel like this is actually the beginning of my actual journey, as opposed to feeling like it's the end of it. I don't feel like that. I feel like the actual journey starts when you actually get all your tools, right? Because now I can actually like navigate it. It's not navigating me. I'm getting bumped on. I was getting bumped on the head growing up through life because I didn't know. Now I know. So now I'm navigating. I'm not trying to, find my way. It's the difference between finding your way and navigating. Navigating, I know the way. I just have to go through it, right? So that's why I feel like I'm in life. So it's the beginning of that for me. So I feel like it's the beginning.
Yeah, the beginning. Well, I'm like excited. I met you in the beginning, and I'm excited to
Yeah.
see like where life takes you. Um,
hmm
it's pretty exciting. Where do you see yourself in the next, let's say 10 years?
10 years. Um, in a better place than I am now. Mostly mentally and spiritually. Yeah, I want to be in way better places, and far as health wise, I want to be in a way better place. Uh, I feel like the financial part that'll take care of itself. The family stuff that also take care of itself. But long as I can keep me together, everything else around me will it will be easy. It's hard to get yourself to, it's hard to get stuff around you together when you ain't got yourself together. So long as I keep this together, everything around me will flourish. So that I want to be in a better place mentally and spiritually than I am now. More enlightened. So
Well, I'm excited to see what that looks like for you. Chris, do you
me
have
too.
any advices to any listener listening to this that maybe is going through something? Maybe they're also like a single father or trying to make it through life. Any words of wisdom you want to share?
Yeah. I always prioritize being a good dad over being a good boyfriend. This it should never be a choice. It never be a choice. If you have to be a bad man to be a good dad, make that choice. You know, if you have to be a bad friend to be a good dad, make that choice. So, yeah, I just say make your choice and stick with it. That's what I would say.
Have your priorities straight. I like that.
Hmm.
I like that. Chris, is there anything that I haven't asked you about that you want to mention?
I don't. I don't think so. I mean, I feel like we touched a plethora of subjects. Um,
Aw, well, thank you so much for taking the time to like have this conversation with me, and thank you so much for taking the time to share your story. I always love listening to you speak. It always inspires me. It's crazy how, I mean, clearly we have different journey. I'm not like a father, but I just like I feel like I just like learning from your wisdom. I know is just so like inspiring into my life, and so I'm just excited to like know you as a person. Feel very blessed by
I'm
you.
glad. I'm glad. Thank you for that. I appreciate that.
Well, you have a good evening, Chris.
How you do the same?
Thank you. Bye.
Yes, ma'am. Bye.